Well, hello everyone. My name is Julie O'Brien. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Dazz. And with me today for this session of Wednesday Wisdom, I have the pleasure of having Fred Hamilton, the CISO of BHG Financial, joining me. Hey, Fred.
Hey, how you doing today?
Good. It's good to see you. I know it's been a couple of weeks since we ran into each other in Miami. How's the weather down there?
It's hot. I know you can't tell by my sweater and my jacket, but it's pretty hot down here. Summer has come
All
for sure.
right. Good. And refresh my memory, is BHG Financial headquartered in Florida, or where? Tell me a little about the company and sort of your role there.
Yeah, actually, we started off in a couple actual headquarters, if you will. So BHG was started about 20 years ago, give or take, in between Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Syracuse, New York.
Mhm,
And so what BHG does is we provide loans to highly qualified lenders and then take those loans and then sell them to banks.
mhm,
So as a result, our banking side was oftentimes located in Syracuse, I guess is the way you put it, and then
mhm,
sales, we were down in the Florida area.
mhm.
Since then, the financial headquarters has now switched down to Fort Lauderdale, but historically it kind of remains that way.
Very good. So, and how big is the organization? You know, what size employee base are you supporting? What does your team look like?
So we have about 1,800 folks in the company right now, give or take. Now there's some contractors that definitely increase that, but as far as actual FTEs, it'd be about 1,800. The information security team's about 30. That includes both the security operations, which is what we'll probably mostly be discussing here, but also GRC, and on top of that, IAM.
Mhm. All right, very good. So, talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about some of the top goals for you and your team this year, or what's keeping you up at night right now,
Well, there's a
other
lot of things that, what's that?
other than the heat.
Other than the heat, exactly. I think some of our biggest challenges this year. Well, let me go back a little bit. So BHG's information security team started about 5.5 years ago, um, because that's when we started the team. And so we've had a lot of projects going in order to get caught up for a lot of things we needed to do.
Mhm,
And so as we've been growing and growing out the team and growing at our skill set, a lot of the things we can do has changed. And this year, we're really looking heavily at a couple of areas. But most importantly, we're looking at vulnerabilities. We're looking at
mhm,
vulnerabilities in the cloud. Because in the past 2 years, we have gone, like most companies, we've gone from being a mostly on-prem company to COVID happening and then
mhm,
suddenly having a lot more cloud exposure.
mhm,
So that's really where some of our biggest challenges lay right now. That's
mhm,
definitely what also keeps me up at night because the cloud's a different beast, right? It's not only is it more accessible, it's just built differently. So
mhm,
it's a lot more templatized, which makes lateral movement a lot easier. And once one thing is compromised, I think we're in a little bit of trouble.
mhm,
So that's the one area where I get scared the most because it's
mhm,
also where there's also the least amount of skill set around kind of technical security professionals. We've got some great folks on the team, but there's not a lot of people out there.
mhm.
So that's really kind of our big area right now.
Yeah, so the cloud enables, quick agility around development and getting your product, your applications into the market, but a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? That means the attack surface is also a lot different, a lot broader to get your arms around than having just like an on-prem
Mhm.
environment. And attacks can happen super fast in the cloud, and so it's really important to try to figure out how do you get your arms as a security organization around those issues.
One of the first kind of security educators I ever worked with, a guy named Dr. Eric Coles out of Sands. And he used to say, whatever can be used for bad can be used for evil. And I
Mhm.
mean, whatever can be used for good can be used for evil or bad. It's how he'd look at it. And that's definitely true. So, whenever you have those real positives, like, wow, we can get to there really fast, we can deploy really quickly. Well, yes, that means you're not the only one who can actually move around very quickly in there. And
Right.
that's the malicious side. So you're absolutely right. Getting your arms around is tough. It's a huge, huge, huge burden for us.
Now, financial services, you may be one of the lucky ones who hasn't seen the same kind of budget pressure and cybersecurity as other industries. Talk to me a little bit about like what's the philosophy in terms of investing in cybersecurity, and how has that looked? How has that fared for you in this year, where there is a little more, pressure overall on budgets?
Yeah, there's kind of a couple aspects to that, but the biggest thing is this. At BHG, we fully understand that the more chaos there is in the economic world, um, the worse it's going to get. The chaos is what a lot of various actors will take advantage of. So we got a couple areas in that. First of all, is the economic times and the financial pressures. Well, that kind of spurs a lot of criminal growth. But on top of that, we've also got this little war going on across the ocean. And one of the largest malicious actors, Russia, is involved in that. And so that's also a big concern of us. We've recently seen a couple places where Russia's starting to kind of start using a little bit more cyber techniques. And so all those things combined, when we take that to the board here, one of the things that's happened is that our leadership takes us very, very seriously. We're very fortunate in that our leadership is fully aware of the risks that security has. We have a couple reasons for that. One of those reasons is we're also regulated by the FDIC, like a lot of our bank customers are. So we fully understand the risks that financial institutions, are exposed to. And also on top of that, we've got a great reputation out there, and we want to maintain that great reputation. And so if we need to invest a little bit more money into our program, we do. Because at the end of the day, protecting our customers is really my number one job. At the end of the day, all we do is me and my team, we protect our customers and protect our data. And after that, it takes care of itself. So our leadership is really on board with that kind of philosophy, and that's what we do.
Yep, it's amazing. Great. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal probably like 2 or 3 weeks ago now, talking about the fact that cybersecurity professionals were going to need to start thinking about, because there are cost pressures, maybe not on your budget, but like generally speaking, because of the factors that you just discussed, that cybersecurity professionals need to be thinking about new ways to find efficiencies and effectiveness, and looking for technologies that will allow them to be a more effective, efficient organization or function inside the company. Automation, AI are two of those technologies. I'm curious, like your thoughts. Are you bringing in any kind of automation technologies? Could be a leading question to help you and your team be more effective.
Yeah. Well, to kind of go back to the beginning part of your question, is that I don't want to totally mislead you. We could always use more money in security. So if there's any BHG leaders listening today, we could always use more. But that said, I think it's super important for a lot of CISOs and a lot of information security leaders to not only be technically and compliance proficient, but also business proficient. The first thing you need to do is you need to know how your business makes money. And you need to know exactly how that's done, so you can help be an enabler of business and not a slower downer of business. Our entire goal, like I said before, not only to protect the customers, but to enable us to have business and do it securely and safely. Because without that reputation, we're in trouble. So it's been a real challenge for us to always stay on top of exactly what the business strategies are, which is my job, and then to turn those around into tactics that work for the company. Now, you mentioned a couple of things. One's AI, one's automation, and obviously, I think a lot of security professionals and leadership knows that staffing can be real tough right now. When you look in the pipeline for security professionals, it's a little scary. We have to really be able to look outside of the traditional hiring methods and in traditional pipeline, if you will, in order to be able to get the right kind of staff for us. But on top of that, so it's scary. But on top of that, what we also do is we also look at the tools, like you said, that can really enable us to move us quicker down that path while we're developing the staff we need. At the end of the day, we're never going to be able to do all this without staff. But if we can have a good tool, such as in this case, a Dazz, in order to help us with automation, the remediation's faster. Because what we already talked about in the cloud is what's easier for us to use is also easier for the malicious actors to use. So automation and some human interaction is really going to be the key in order to get those done more quickly. And that's what we're using Dazz for. There's a couple other tools. AI is a whole different topic between open and closed AIs. And that's been something that's been on all of our conversations quite a bit. In fact, that's also one of the things that keeps me awake at night, the open AI type stuff.
Okay, very good. And just more specifically, when you think about where your pain points have been and sort of what led you to engage with Dazz as a vendor, and I do want to talk about your vendor strategy too, because I think you share a similar strategy as I do when I'm looking at vendors in terms of what kind of relationship and partnership I want to have with my vendors. But as you were thinking about areas where you could improve efficiency, where did you see Dazz helping your team specifically?
I think on our team, as well as most teams, the vulnerability information you have for applications are kind of scattered throughout the environment. You've got your SAS scanners, you've got your DAS scanners, you've got all sorts of different kind of intelligence information gathering groups for tools, if you will. And that's kind of a clunky way to put it, but basically we got a lot of tools that give us a lot of information. And having one kind of aggregated area to do it in really gives us a lot of efficiencies, because it's not only that you only have a single pane of glass, but one of the things with a lot of the tools is it's hard to be able to aggregate all the various vulnerabilities you get into something that's a little bit more digestible. So if I go out and look, for instance, only the DAS scanner, and then maybe even pull in a SAS scanner in there, what you might be able to do is you might be able to see you've got 1,000 vulnerabilities. But a tool like Dazz, what it does is it kind of takes them, combines them, aggregates them, and then gives you a little bit of risk score, so you can say, okay, first of all, that 1,000 is now turned into 100 actual configuration changes. And this is where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck and change. And so that's a huge efficiency we get. That's a
Yeah, that's common benefit and use case that we hear from customers is being able to prioritize what matters most and focus, small but mighty teams on solving those things in partnership with the developer team and being able to find those developers as fast as possible too.
Well, that's key, right? Especially in organizations. I mean, most organizations, especially the past few years, have had a lot of turnover. So in order sometimes to find the right person who's got the right code, who actually did the development, can be tricky because people are moving around throughout the organization. So that is a real big help. Also, what it also helps for us to do is it also helps us kind of locate those guys and say, oh, who can use a little extra training? Where can we support them a little bit better? And we're getting that information out of Dazz. So that's also, it's huge, because my goal, if the best thing I could get from Dazz is finding out where all my trouble spots are, and then suddenly we're no longer writing half the vulnerabilities out there, because that really is part of your vulnerability remediation program, is not creating as many. And Dazz is going to help us with that too. So we're pretty excited about that.
That's excellent. Thank you. You had a conversation with me about vendor selection too, and I mentioned I think we share a similar view on which vendors we enjoy working with and why. But like when you're looking at the landscape of technology providers, like what's kind of your short list of like these are the things they must be or do for us?
When you think about it, this exact part of this conversation feeds into half of what we've already talked about, and that is today's modern information security organization is, for the most part, busy. Our responsibilities have grown significantly, but the pipeline for people is not as great as it used to be. So as a result, we have to rely on a hybrid approach with a really great team of highly skilled people, along with a suite of partners that we can work with to get stuff done. Gone are the days where I can just simply buy a tool, have a vendor as far as buying the tool, then throwing the whole thing over the fence and walking away from that and moving on. You have to have actual partners, people who are responsive, who will work with you. For instance, can I get someone on the phone? Not only that, can they take some actions? Not only that, if I actually have a product request, can you help us build that? I know we may not have the TAM resources and all that stuff, but we have a need real quick. We're in a hurry. Can you help us out? Or are we on our own? Those are the types of things that we really look at with vendors, not just the vulnerability space, but all of our information security, because we're using more vendors than we ever had before because of the situation we just talked about. So as a result, what's super critical for us is to have not just vendors, but partners.
Have you had the experience yet of having to add an integration to like, or request an integration from us that maybe we didn't have out of the box and you needed? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's kind of funny because we got a couple integrations written custom just for the POC.
Mhm,
And so you might suspect that once you become an actual customer, then suddenly all that willingness to help might kind of fade away, and it hasn't. We
mhm,
just had an integration written fairly recently. It
mhm,
was very quick. It was easy to do. But not only that, again, it wasn't like, oh, here's some documentation, you're done. There's
mhm,
conversation about the best way to do it. And then when some troubleshooting was required, we had
mhm,
plenty of help with really great staff on your team. Rodham
mhm,
is one of them, where he just really
mhm,
stepped in the breach and said, oh, there's some miscommunication about the way to do it. Let's talk.
mhm,
It was
mhm.
great.
I'll be sure to let him know you said that. It's great to hear. Yeah, I think we have at least 50 integrations. Since we have a read-only API interface, it's pretty easy for us to build those things. So it's great to have you as a design partner with us, because I'm sure what we're building with you will benefit other
Yep.
financial services companies too. So, so cloud security, obviously a big important area of investment for you. I'm curious if you could go back 3 to 5 years, what advice would you share with yourself around cloud and cloud security?
With the cloud, um, get my DeLorean, go back 3 to 5 years, and start another 5 years earlier. This has been a really fast moving area that we really need to focus on. And I think everyone's got the exact same position in. 4 or 5 years ago, the cloud existed, but it just simply did not have the penetration, I guess,
Mhm.
that there is now. And there's no one who's not really heavily cloud centric now, or very few companies are. And before that just wasn't that just didn't exist that way. So
Mhm.
definitely I start way earlier than I thought I could.
Well, I'm just get started too, probably is part of the dialogue. Get
Yeah.
started and do it sooner if you can.
Get started
Um,
now. If you don't have a DeLorean and you can't go back in time, get started right now. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Well, Wednesday Wisdom is meant to be like short, succinct. We know CISOs are busy. We know security practitioners are crazy busy. So we try to time this so you can grab a coffee and grab a bite to eat. So I think, we're coming up on our sort of sweet spot of 20 minutes. And I guess like as we close off and you think about the area that we're playing in, which is cloud security remediation and trying to take pain out of the process and bring security and development teams, closer together to collaborate better, because I've been told that there's some friction there. Just any, closing thoughts that you might share.
Yeah, actually the collaboration of the teams, I think is going to be the biggest thing, right? So it's if you can find any kind of technology that can help kind of demystify who owns what and everything, getting the people the information they need quickly, and also who it is, I think it actually will build a little collaboration with it. We've actually seen that, especially on the DevOps partners,
Mhm,
where suddenly things are a little bit more clear, a little less confusion. I think that's super important. I
mhm,
think setting Dazz or any other tool aside, information security's biggest challenge is working with a disparate field of teams that
mhm,
all need to be able to do different things, all without guidance, and all independently as well,
mhm,
without us holding their hand, so to speak, which everyone's usually pretty good at, but everyone's got a lot of competing priorities. And
mhm,
having those relationships and really working well with these other partners is really what's going to get you going there. The
mhm,
tools can help, and this tool will help us. But at the end of the day, those relationships across the inside of your tech teams are
mhm,
really going to be critical for any information security practitioner.
mhm. Well, thank you very much, Fred. I really appreciate you joining us here today on Wednesday Wisdom. Thank you for being a design partner with us and a customer.
Thank you very much. It's great seeing you again.
You too.